And welcome back to Bars Loaded Podcast with Ben and Nick.
Percent at some stage in my life, I'm gonna get a shirt made. Just be like, it's the tism. That's it.
Can you make one for me too?
Yeah, no. I think I don't know,
I'll buy
in
one.
this day and age of who, how far I can push the line of offensive, because I want to sell them because I've got two buyers right here, but I don't think I'm going to sell them for much. It's just we just make a drop shipping website where it's the cost and it just arrives at your door of it's the tism. I feel like that would save me so many conversations because people are not going to come talk to me.
The payment just needs to be upload a video of yourself demonstrating how you've got it, and it's yours.
Yeah, that's the criteria. That's the you have to pass the test. Oh, fuck. That's a great way to start things.
I don't think that's offensive because, it's called a spectrum for a reason. I mean, we all have it just to varying degrees. Everyone's on it.
Yeah, fair. This is true. All right, boys. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bars Loaded with Ben and Nick. Today we have a very entertaining guest. He is the head coach at Only the Committed. He's an educator with Prescripts. With no further ado, James Macintosh.
Thanks,
welcome.
Guys. Appreciate it. Apologies about not being able to do this last week. But
that's all good.
My favorite internet company has been giving me so much shit. I think I went on a rant about this a while ago, but every day I email the support for this stupid company of my internet is down, fix it. It's the dude's name is Marvin, and Marvin replies to me every day, but Marvin replies to me 2 hours after I send the email saying it's working. And I was like, yes, now, 2 hours later, Marvin. But 2 hours earlier, it fucking wasn't. It's I'm going to kill Marvin. If I ever meet Marvin in person, which I probably won't because he's probably offshore call center type of vibe. I'll never meet him. But if I ever did, I'm going to punch him in the face. And then 2 hours later, I'm going to walk by and be like, did it hurt? See, it's the same fucking thing.
He's sorry, James. I couldn't get back to you. The internet was down.
Yeah, it's what do you want me to... The funniest part was one of them was he replied 2 hours later, he's can you take a photo and send it to me? I was like, dude, I don't have internet. It's I don't have the ability to do this for you right now. It's he wanted a photo of the not the router,
internet
but
waves. Take a photo of the internet for me.
He wanted the photo of the control box, and I was like, dude, I'm in a building. It's I don't even know where the fucking thing is. It's just it plugs into the wall in a little fucking hole, and it gives me internet. So what do you want me to do, Marvin? Marvin fucking, it's like the giraffe from Madagascar. That's how stupid he is. That's the same thing.
What a visual.
It's pretty wild the lack of internet that we have in this country.
You know what? It's still 300 million% better than South Africa. So I can't complain.
Is it
but
really?
I will I mean, probably the best thing in South Africa right now is thanks Elon Musk. If we can get the Starlink, amazing. But at one stage, my highest download speed in South Africa, and we only just started getting fiber internet. So you guys have got fiber, and you got NBN, similar concept, two different ones. But anyways, so we just started getting fiber when I left. The max speed I got was a 15 meg download. That's what I live my life at. 15 to 25 meg downloads. We complain if it's less than 50. Anyways, so yeah, perspective. Yeah.
Not too bad. Yeah. I spent time over in the States where it's much better.
Yes. Very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been in Australia for?
Just on 4 years and 3 months. Literally, I arrived just before COVID. About 2 months before COVID hit. So on November 2019, moved over for a job opportunity. So I came over in September of 2019 to surprise my dad for his 60th birthday. While I was back in South Africa, I was studying like just doing distance learning to get my Cert 3 and 4. So that like my long term was to move to Australia anyways, because I had a what they call like a reoccurring re-entry visa or like a permanent residency. It's like there's a time frame on that you then got to be in country for to extend it for another certain amount of years. So the plan was basically study, get qualified, so that I could literally just get on a plane, come here, and just walk into a gym and at least be qualified to work. Anyways, came over to surprise my dad for 60th. Was doing some like in-person practical shit at the same time with this company, and they turned around. They were like, "We have a job opening. Like, do you want it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And went home, packed up my life in a week, and sold everything and moved. And I haven't been back. It was 4.5 years ago. That was it.
It's a pretty crazy turn of events, isn't it?
Yeah, one of those like opportunities that just kind of presented itself, and it's like I had to jump, and luckily I did. And 2 months later, the world went into the full lockdown. It would have been a very different outcome, very different scenario if I didn't do that and didn't take that opportunity. So wouldn't have
Obviously,
met rescripts, would have done anything.
Yeah.
So
obviously, like this is a little bit of a sort of pure guess, but how do you think things would have been different if you hadn't have taken that opportunity?
Oh man, I'd still be in the same position that I was. Like so, and that's like it's a funny thing. Like I've kind of thought back on it and tried to reflect back on like where this was. Like I had what I was about 9 months post second hip op or second hip replacement surgery. So I was 9 months post that. I was like I had 3 in-person clients at the gym, like my mate's gym that I was helping him at. I still dealt guns, so I was still a firearms dealer and dealing guns at the same time. And like I was kind of just like had my hands in many different avenues. Wasn't making a lot of money, to be honest. Was like barely getting by. Still trying to rehab everything. Still trying to go over this. Got the opportunity at like a not a great salary, I guess. Funny enough, not a good salary at all, considering that they were paying me below minimum wage, and I had to take them to Fair Works 2 months later and sue them. Anyways, that's a story for another time. But yeah, so that wasn't being paid a great amount of money, but I was being paid an amount of money that I could at least get by on, and pretty much like I sold everything up, all that money that I got from selling everything back in South Africa, I managed to move myself over with, and then start diving into learning. So I think the biggest thing for me, like from a reflective standpoint, was how far behind I was. Like South Africa we don't have access to the educational superpowers that Australia and the United States has. And that purely comes down to like a financial standpoint. Remember, it's 14-1 to the Aussie dollar. So it's like for me to take any form of educational course it almost costs the same amount as doing a 4-year degree in South Africa from like a rand value standpoint. So imagine like me taking prescript. It's like, okay, it's 2,000 Aussie dollars. It's like 2,000 Aussie dollars is like 25,000 rand. About that, so just under that. 25,000 rand, to give you like perspective, is a accountant's salary on a monthly basis. Like an accountant that's been going for a long time in a full month's worth of salary. 25 grand like is a lot of money. It would have been 3 months rent at the house that I used to own. So that gives you perspective. It's like, so I came to this country, I kind of got thrown in the deep end a little bit, and I was like, holy shit, I'm behind. Like I need to and I literally used all that money that I had, which wasn't much, but I used all that, and I dove into about 4 different courses straight off the bat while I was at this company where I was supposed to be getting education from at the same time, but wasn't, but was. But it's complicated. And literally just like started upskilling, and that's where I jumped into Prescript. That was one of the first online PSL ones that we did, and that need and that feeling of like I'm behind is what got me to the position that I am in now. It's like I just dove into any and everything that I could, and I had to upskill. Basically like 3 months, I took myself from what I would say like not knowing anything to knowing a little bit to at least be able to stand at the same head height as a couple or a decent amount of people within the industry within this country. And it was literally just because it was like a single swim. It's like, I've got to fucking make this work. And that's that would be like the big reflective piece. It's like I wouldn't be further in my, and not even like career, but more from like my knowledge standpoint. It's like I look back at all of the things and even like the principles that I was applying back in South Africa and the way that I was training. And even like, unfortunately I had a pretty bad fallout with the friendship group that I was involved with in South Africa because of how everything occurred. Like I talk to no one back home. I have no one that I talk to. Like that's it. I got disowned. I got fucking uninvited to weddings, dude. It was wild. And you know what?
Brutal.
It is, but it's like this is life, unfortunately. And it's like if that's the narrative that they want to paint, that is what it is. Cool. But the big thing for me was like, okay, I literally have no one. It's sink or swim now. It's like now you really have to go. But I look back at of the people that I was around and the people that I looked up to. It was funny. Like I always used to get disciplined is the wrong word. I always used to get like disciplined for asking why. Like for me, that was my biggest thing. It's like we go through training blocks, we go through things, and like I'd always ask like why. And I remember the one time like the head coach turned around to me, he's like, "You got to stop fucking asking why." Like and he hounded me about it, and he like drove me to the ground about asking why. And for a long period of time, like up to like 2 years, I just didn't question why we were doing things because like belittle is the wrong word, but close enough too. And then I found Prescript, and it was like the complete inverse of like, hey, you need to ask better questions. You need to ask why we're doing things. And it kind of like fit perfectly into my slightly autistic, slightly kind of retarded to a certain degree mode of like, I want to know why. Because if I know why, then I can apply what's going on. And I think that's like, that's my profound question. And I try and get anyone who we teach or anyone we get in contact with these days is getting them to ask those questions. Like just ask, and not those questions, that question. Why? Why are we doing this? And then like dig a little bit deeper as to why we are going through said routine or said set structure or said principle. Like ask why. Because once you get down to that base level foundation of like why we're doing this, you can laterally apply it to any and everything from there. It's like that's the that's my missing piece within the industry, I think, is not the ability to not question why or zoom out and ask why.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's obviously Prescript is important, questions are important, training's important, and we will get back to all of that.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to dealing guns because I feel like
glad
that's
you went
something...
back to that because I was like,
that's
we were actually talking about guns last night.
We were talking about guns last night, and I have heard people say James likes violent analogies and James likes guns.
Yeah.
And
makes
as soon as I heard that, my ears pricked up because obviously I like both of those things as well. But I actually never knew that you dealt guns, and I would really like you to talk about that a little bit. And if you could also touch on the hip replacements. You said that you were 9 months post second hip replacement. So obviously that implies that you had a first hip replacement.
Yep.
How did that come about, and how has that shaped the way you look at training, both from a personal perspective and then from a client perspective at the moment as well?
All right. So sub one with the guns, I had what's called like competency to trade in firearms and ammunition. So the guy that I was contracted to and eventually started like looking after part of like the retail space within that company. And then at the same time, kind of we moved shops, and it was just like, it was a whole thing, but basically like competency to trade in firearms and ammunition. So basically under a dealer's license, and could sell and trade in firearms and ammunition. It was a big part of the business that we ran was we had kind of the retail side, which was firearms, ammunition, etc. And then we had we call it the supplier side or the wholesale side, which a lot of that was like ammunition based. So we did arguably the most amount of rounds of AK, so 6.1, 61 by 5.9, and 223 was like our big calibers that we moved a lot of fucking ammo with. Like we were moving hundreds of thousands of rounds a week. So we used to sell to either personal individuals, other dealers, sports shooters. So sports shooting was pretty big, or is pretty big in South Africa. So that's how we can own. Every gun has to be licensed to the individual. So we can own, like I shot competitively in both rifle and handgun at a relatively high level in South Africa. So I used to, long rifle was my game. So I used to run an 18-inch 223. What was my rifle? I had a Stag Arms. That was my side arm. So I used to run around with a 13-inch Stag Arms. And then I had an ADC 18-inch, like proper long-range rifle that I used to run around with. That was my fun time. So that was firearms and ammunition. I got into that from... we're gonna go into this. All right, so I got into that from like the more tactical medicine side. So out of school, I went into emergency medicine. So qualified paramedic within South Africa. So it was road operational for 3 to 5 years, and then from the back end of that, moved into the more like what we call TEMS or tactical EMS side. So like I liked going into danger. Because that's what you do. And anyways, we kind of like the love for firearms kind of grew from that. And funny enough, I landed up at the shooting range that I landed up getting involved with and working for and contracted to because of my hip replacement. So I couldn't do the normal things that I used to do to kind of get rid of that frustration. So I went to the shooting range. I used to just fucking practice with my 9mm at that stage. I just started getting into competitive shooting, like handgun shooting. So we have different federations. We have like IDPA or International Defensive Pistol Association and IPSC, so International Practical Shooting Club. So that's actually we have that in Australia as well. So I was kind of playing around in both, and I spent my time at the shooting range every day, just shooting guns and playing around with different firearms and kind of learning the calibers, and then started helping out in the store. And then off the back end of that, like you got to go through quite a few loopholes and things to be able to kind of like be licensed to trade and get a competency to trade. So eventually that happened off the back end of this, and I just got involved in guns and distribution of guns and transporting them and ammo, and just like essentially as close to the fire as I could is essentially what I wanted to do. Like I just like adrenaline. I like adrenaline. I like those types of things. I like the danger aspect of it. So very much involved in that realm, that system. Fun times, business, people, high risk, good money, pretty good money if you do know what you're doing there. But fun, yeah, good lessons in life. Really, probably one of the biggest lessons or takeaways I took from that industry, because I think like being able to reflect back on that's a pretty cool thing, is the people side. Like, you're in a shop all the time. You've got to read people. You got to read what's going on. Like we had a couple incidents within stores that, like, I got and purely at the time, luckily nothing malicious, but just like people not thinking. It's like we know the rules of firearms is like you never point a firearm at something that you do not wish to destroy. We've got to like think about where the bullet is going and beyond. And I had a guy come up to me in the store and literally pull his gun out and just pointed at me because he wanted to show me his firearm. So, dude, as I saw that hand reach, I fucking drew, and I was lined the motherfucker up straight at the store because I thought we were getting robbed. It's like little things like that, like keeps you on edge. We had a couple other incidents, a couple guys staking up the store, like it just cool stuff. Anyways, long story short is people. Like from that, I learned how to interact with people more so than what I was doing, obviously, from the paramedic standpoint. Like I've always had an affinity to talk to people. And that's just kind of on-flowed into those types of things, and eventually had to stop doing that because I went through my second hip replacement at the time, and I just couldn't couldn't carry my firearm. More so because I carry appendix. That's just how I've always carried a gun. So appendix obviously being like, barrel at my dick. And when you've had a hip replacement, it's pretty difficult to crutch around and still carry a gun. So, it worked in the store. But to go back to your second question, I guess, more the hip replacement, which I think is very much coaching related. So, 2015, I was second year into Olympic weightlifting, third year into powerlifting. Did well at South African Powerlifting Nationals, received the call-ups for Commonwealth in 2015 in Vancouver. I was a 74 kilo lifter. Fuck, I was tiny. Dude, wow. I was tiny. Also natty. But, like, super fucking just, like, a stick. As a junior as well. So I was still a junior at that time. Got the call-up. The day I got the call-up, or a little backstory. So we used to do powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting. Like one of the things we were known for at the club and the gym that I worked at was, call it like hybrid athletes. That term gets thrown around a lot right now, and like the hot girls running around and shit. It's like, hey, you're not a hybrid athlete. Anyways, hybrid athlete. Like our goal was like super totals. Like we had this thing of like the super total, like squat, bench, deadlift, clean, and jerk and snatch. Like that was like the thing that we all wanted to do. So gym that we got involved in was also that. So powerlifting, and funny enough, I think this concept moves over into everything. Like powerlifting is a great base for Olympic weightlifting. Why? Because you get really strong. And if you can become proficient at the movements of squat, of snatch and clean and jerk, it kind of carries over. So we had this whole like hybrid training system of train powerlifting in your quote unquote off season and Olympic weightlifting in your on season. You just kind of integrated the movements back in, and you'd be a little bit rusty and your shoulder would hurt, but you could get under the bar and be pretty sweet. Anyway, so powerlifting nationals beginning of the year, did well, came whatever the fuck I came first as a junior, third as an open, and the stupid 74s, and then was doing my off season was at nationals for Olympic weightlifting in the 77s. Also weird. That's old school times. I think the weight classes have changed since then. So was there, snatched 105 at like 77, snatched clean and jerk 152 or 150, something like that. And as I caught that clean on the bottom left, my hip just went in and I dropped to the floor. And long story short, tore my labrum. Didn't know at the time. So still took my third attempt, got it, hurt like fucking hell. And I couldn't squat, couldn't do anything for like 6 weeks after this. Couldn't figure it out. Went and saw my chiropractor at the time, actually, who was like, luckily more so not just the like crack your neck chiropractor, like actually funny enough, like call it a sports chiropractor who looks at the musculoskeletal system. Went to the checks and she was like, I think you've torn your labrum, but referred it out, went, had looked, confirmed. Day I got confirmation of torn labrum is the day I got the call up for Commonwealth in Vancouver. So I literally like walked out of the surgeon's office and the surgeon was like, hey, you're going to need surgery. Like it's like you've done a goodie, like a full rupture tear right through. Like the pain you're in, we need to do something about this, athletic career. You'll be in and out, no problems. We can rehab. You'll be back. Sweet. I was like, sick. Walked out, got the phone call, walked back in. I was like, hey, doc, we're about like 4 months out from this thing. Like, can I prep for it? Or like, do I need to have the surgery now? Because again, sorry, another tangent. There's a little backstory in my life. I've always made it to like either a call up or just on the elite level and something happens. So I made call ups for the under 18 national side in field hockey. And the day that, like, as this was happening, about a week later, I got hit in the back of the head and I landed up with brain damage. So I was in a coma for like 3 months and a whole bunch of stupid shit at like the age of 17.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, I've had
it. All makes sense. Right?
Yeah, it makes sense. So, like, this was after multiple concussions, being punched in the face a couple times and, like, stupid boy shit. So like that was like my bigger opportunity, and everything else, whether cricket career, all these things. I always got injured just as I made a big kind of achievement. I never really could, I don't want to say follow through with it, but never really be able to follow through. Funny enough, this is probably my life lesson. I go too hard at things. But anyways, landed up going back in. The doc was like, listen, you can do it. It's going to fucking suck. Like, you're going to be in, like, a lot of pain, but you've torn through the labrum. Like, you're not really going to cause any more damage. Like, structurally, you're pretty fucked up. You just got to do what you got to do if you want to do this. I was like, that sounds like permission, so I'm going to go for it. Dude, so, again, at the time, paramedic. So we had access to Entonox. So Entonox is like the green whistle. It's like the same
My
concept.
favorite.
All right, cool.
Do
you want to know how you squat on that shit? You squat really, really well.
No
Also, Heidi do not recommend squatting on that. So we don't get it in a whistle. We get it in a full fucking face mask with like a gas canister. So I used to do it hilarious. So yeah, you can see what's happening. So I used to set up my squat rack in the fucking cage, and I used to sit on a bench with my gas canister, like this fucking orange box gas canister, with the mask, and I'd take a hit to go, and I'd walk over, get on the bar and do a fucking squat, and then I put the bar back, and then like sit down and then have to take another hit because it was too fucking sore. And that's how I did 4 months of prep, right? Like,
fuck.
So I prepped, Commonwealth, did, I don't know, whatever the fuck, top 5 in the world or whatever, or in Commonwealth or whatever it was, maybe top 10, whatever. Flew back. The day I landed, I went straight into surgery. Straight back. Like, I landed like 5 a.m. in the morning. I landed up going straight to the hospital, straight into surgery, woke up. And as I woke up, I was like, you guys fucked something up. I looked at them and I was like, something's wrong. And they were like, nah, everything's good, successful. I was like, nope, something's wrong. Like, I can just tell. Like one of those like woohoo fucking, Mercury's in retrograde or some bullshit. And so like had like a
Aquarius.
yeah, it's an Aquarius problem or some shit. And landed up in the surgery. They do like a nerve block, so they put a whole bunch of like lignocaine into like the nerve junction in terms of the lumbar. And 2 days later, I still couldn't feel my leg. 3 days later, I couldn't feel my leg. And like, being me, kind of tested it out. Like, I put the hot water on in the shower, like scorching hot. And I stuck my leg in there and I was like, I don't feel anything, but my skin's burning. Like, I've got bubbles. Long story. Yeah, no, I fucked it. Yeah. So what happened is that the nerve block landed up causing a problem. It took about 3 months for the feeling to come back after multiple tests and going through all of these things. And the atrophy that occurred on my leg was insane. So all of this happened at the same time while we're trying to rehab this, trying to like figure out what's going on. Like, no one can get an idea. Eventually, they put me back in under a dye-injected MRI. Anchors pulled out of the acetabulum. So the anchors that they put in to repair the labrum had both pulled out. 2 new tears in the labrum. The anchors had moved around within the whole cavity, and ligamentous teres, or whatever the fuck it was. This one of the ligaments got ruptured in there as well. Psoas had a rupture. The whole structure got fucked up. So they were like, cool, we can go back in. Oh yeah, it was shitty. It was super shitty. So it gets worse. So we go back in for the labrum repair. Go back in. They clean everything up. They're like, listen, this thing was fucked. Clean everything up. Put it all in. Wake up, and I'm like styling. It's like, I feel amazing. Like, this is good. 6 months of rehab. 3 months into my rehab, I'm like, something's just not feeling right. About 3 months in, I start like no energy, excruciating pain, like just like, not right. Another 3 months goes by of all of this shit happening. I actually land up like completely breaking down, like just having a full mental breakdown of like, I can't lie still without being in excruciating pain. I land up coming to Australia to see my dad. And while I'm out here, I go and see a sports physician. It's like some dude down in Sydney. He does a functional MRI on me, and he's like, do you know why you're in so much pain? AV necrosis of head of femur. So I'd been dealing with like basically bone dying
Yeah.
for about 3 months. And the head of FEMA basically just started dying. So it was like, hey, we can do the surgery here, or you go back to South Africa and do it. Stupidly, I went back to South Africa and did it. So youngest hip replacement in South Africa, not due to traumatic event. So full hip replacement, felt incredible when I came. Okay, other than the most excruciating pain of my life when I woke up, everything felt sweet. I was gold, dude. I was rehab, full year of rehab. Everything came back, felt good. 18 months later, squatting again, squatted 225 at 18 months post-op. Went back in for my 2-year checkup, and about like a month before the checkup, started getting like quad pain. And I was like, I've just fucked around. I've strained my quad as we were going for the 2-year checkup. And now, remember, this is the surgeon who's done all of these operations on me. Very good surgeon, and like no fault of his own. Like, just I'm the fucking black sheep. Body rejected the implant, so had prosthetic loosening, and he had to go back in and do a revision. So now we're going and have the revision done. At the same time, while all of this is fucking happening, and he goes in, they note that the psoas has started to calcify. So my psoas tendon and iliopsoas tendon psoas muscle and iliopsoas tendon started calcifying. So this is a condition called, like, it's abbreviated as MO. Can't remember the term. It's like myocalcification or some shit like that, where essentially muscle starts turning to bone because there's too much force going through that. So I started going through that. That's treated with radiation therapy and chemo. So it's like I had to go through that on the back end of this shit. Went through that. That was January 2019. 9 months rehab, as I said. Arrive in Australia. January 2020, just before COVID went down. Went to a surgeon who had been recommended to have my year checkup. Prosthetic loosening. Body has rejected the implant once again. So I live with a implant that is currently loose in my femur and has been getting loose or looser for the last 4 years. And that's my life.
Fuck, man.
Dude.
Yeah. Anyways, to really answer your question around like what that did for my coaching career is completely changed my coaching career.
Yeah, so I kind of want to expand on that a little bit because so a little bit of a backstory on me as well is I grew up playing rugby league, tore my ACL, got it repaired, tore my ACL again early in the season, and because I was an idiot, much like yourself, decided to just play the rest of the season with a torn ACL, and then
that's fun.
I wouldn't suggest it for anyone who's listening, but and then lived the next 15 years of my life with no ACL, continuing to train, and then as a result of that, the looseness within that joint integrity has formed really bad osteoarthritis and calcification of the bone and osteophytes and everything else in the knee. And so it's painful for me to walk, let alone train. And getting out of bed is disgustingly painful every single day. And I guess you've kind of gone through something on a whole different level to that multiple times, yet throughout this whole time of being in pain, having injuries, squatting with a pain med in the gas tank, and continuing to just find ways to get it done. I guess I know for me, and I'm assuming for you as well, really redefined what you knew as hard and how far you can push yourself and what the body's actually capable of. And also what are really fucking dumb things to do and what are some better options to work around. And I know from looking the outside in, your guys train really hard. Do you think that's a direct result of some of the things that you've been through and how you've just pushed through?
So the beauty of being injured when and not at the time, because at the time it's the worst thing possible. It ended my career. It completely, the debilitating pain that I was in and still live in on a daily basis, and you understand that, is it gives you perspective. And at the back end of that, what it also does is it gives you the ability to empathize. So that's a beautiful thing in a coaching relationship, is empathy, but it also gives you the ability to push the limits with people. So for me, I have a lot of athletes who push the limit excessively, but they are very trusting in me when I say we have to pull the handbrake. They listen straight away. Why? Because I know what happens when you don't. When you don't listen and you don't go, or you don't pull back and you don't hit the brakes, you break. You literally break down to the extent. So it's the realization of, like, when I speak or when I say, hey, we're pulling back, or hey, you've got more in the tank, the responsiveness from those athletes is that much greater because they understand the aspect of where I've been. It's like me saying you've got more is because I know you fucking got more. It's like I know what that human body is capable of. And I say that not with arrogance, but I say that obviously with like experience around that. And, all of us have trained at that high level. And, powerlifting itself, I think, is one of those, it's one of those things that carries over into life. Strength training carries over into life. And I don't want to do the whole, like, it empowers me bullshit, but it does. It does, because what it does is it creates resilience. And if you can take that lesson of resilience from training into business, into life, into relationships, it's like that's one of the greatest lessons that training does. But being on the back end of this, like when you fucking break, you break. So it's having that fine line of the two, of now when I speak, my guys listen because they know what can kind of happen. But it's as weird as it sounds, like I do thank God, the universe, whoever is out there, for the experience that they put me through, because I wouldn't be able to coach the way that I coach without it. I wouldn't have the connections, I wouldn't have the people side, I wouldn't have the empathy aspects, I wouldn't have the drive that I do without the injury that I had, because I wouldn't be able to relate with people. I wouldn't have that personality. I wouldn't have all of the positive things that have come from a really shitty situation. And to me, that's what makes part of coaching, is your experience, whether it's experience with lifters or experience within yourself. It's like that's the beauty of coaching and the beauty of using your experiences to coach and get the best out of athletes.
It's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot, dude. It's like that's, I mean, a total of with a whole bunch of other things within the hips and shit. It's like a total of up to 8 operations, if I remember correctly, in the space of like 2.5 years. It's like, dude, I had like my own ward at the fucking hospital at the time. I was like, I should have bought shares. It would have been like, I was basically contributing to the lights every single time. I knew the nursing staff. That was the worst thing, is I knew the head matron, like the head nurse of both the night and the day shift by name personally. It's like, that's when you spent way too much time at the fucking hospital.
Way too much.
So
I guess, sorry, what were we going to say?
No, I was like, that's it. It's life. Yeah.
I guess, like, if you take away, obviously, the experience that you've had with the injury and how that allows you to relate to your athletes and your clients in a way, what would you say that is another major driving force for you that drives you both as a human in general and you as a coach?
Working the problem. So the statement "work the problem" comes from, it actually comes from my my instructor when I went into paramedics. He was an asshole. He was an asshole. And he was an asshole because he threw the most insane curveballs at you all the time. So the way that I went through paramedics is I went through kind of like short courses, close to TAFE, but non-university setting. And basically it's like a month's worth of practical and then like 2 months worth of hardcore fucking, like, every single day we did sims, like, just that's all we did. So it's more like practical based. That's how I learned. I learned practically, theoretically I'm fucking dog shit at. But That's how I learned, is being hands-on. And his statement, every single time, as soon as there was an issue, if he threw a curveball, his statement was work the problem. Work the problem, work the problem, work the problem. And that statement is literally just keep looking for a solution. Keep looking for the answer that's not there right now, but keep problem solving and keep going and keep going. And to me, that statement alone, whether it's, and as you said, not my injury base, but that statement there is what drives, me personally, as well as then like what I do in a coaching standpoint. Coaching is problem solving. It's getting really, really good at solving a problem and having that thought. I've got it even tattooed on the back of my fucking neck. It's like, because that's the goal, is to work the problem in front of you all the time till you find a solution. And if there isn't a solution, you keep working the problem, because it's the principle of working the problem. It's not giving up. It's resilience. It's like that principle of resilience is like one that you don't see often anymore, but it's also one that can literally open so many doors for you. Personal life, career, fucking relationships, coaching. It's like you just keep being resilient, and at some stage things will happen in a positive or negative standpoint.
Yeah. So off the back of that, and you mentioned working the problem, and I've heard you speak recently a number of times about auditing your systems as a coach. And I guess that's kind of along the same lines, where you're kind of looking introspectively into your own business, looking at the systems that you have in place, trying to find a problem, and then working backwards to find a solution or a better way of doing things and streamlining the process. And I've heard you mention multiple times that you've done this periodically through your coaching career, and each time you've done it, it's kind of helped you level up your service or level up as a coach and streamline the process. So I guess I'd be super interested to kind of get your thoughts on maybe one or two of the really big things that you've uncovered during those auditing processes throughout the time that you've been doing it, that have had the biggest impact on landing you and where like OTC as a coaching business is now.
So the first one is communication. And I'm not going to throw that as like a smoke bomb answer, but communication will always be the overarching theme in any business that I think does really well. You get really good at communication. You can have a not subpar product, but you can have a not perfect product. But if you can communicate best, you'll be able to solve any problems that come up real fast. And at the same time, people feel valued. Communication is one of the biggest ones. And I'm not gonna turn around and tell you I'm the boss at it. I'm pretty good at communicating. I do fuck up, but when I fuck up, I also have a look at why I fucked up. And this is that audit process that I always talk about. Like I've had the big experiences in my life within the business growth and kind of these like pivotal standpoints. The communication, as I said, the one thing that kept coming up to me was probably within the first year, 18 months of business, is I saw like the weekly check-in was good, but it was too long a time period between communication. It's like that was my big realization of like, hold on, it takes me fucking nothing to send them a message twice a week. So why don't I send them a message twice a week and just check in and literally be like, hey, Tom, how are you doing? And as soon as I started implementing that within that, I started getting better results within the check-ins on a weekly basis. I was like, hold on. Like it's like such a pivotal audit, but such a simplistic actual answer. It's like all I did is I just started messaging them twice a week. And then I just had my spreadsheet system of the 15, 20 clients I had. Because on Monday I'd do 5 and Tuesday I'd do the other 5, or like 50%, 50%. And then Wednesday and Thursday would be the other ones, and everyone would check in on the Saturday. And it's like, and I started seeing better results, and I was like, hold on, fuck, I'm stupid. Like, how simple of an answer was that? Of like just checking in, like literally, like, hey, have a great day. Like that's as simple as the message could be, and it just produced better and better results. I think that was the first one, and then the second one was, it was the simplification of data gathering was kind of like the big pivotal moment within my coaching business. Of I had at the time, I was using an app, and within the app I had the chat system, and then on the back end of that I had a spreadsheet that was tracking, like the roadmap or like the process in which I wanted to take someone. And fuck, dude, a check-in was taking me like in the app, and unfortunately this is the downfall of apps, is I'd have to click through tab 1 and then tab 2 and then look at body weight on tab 3, and I was just like, there was just so much going on, and like in the IT world we call that like app confusion. And it's just, there was just too many things going on, and I literally sat there and I was like, fuck this, like I need to just consolidate as much as I can. And at that time I had I just started doing very basic spreadsheets, and basically everything would just come off the spreadsheet, and I would use the app purely for training, training plan only. And that kind of consolidated it to a certain degree. Fast forward about another year after that, there was an app that came out that allowed everything to be done within that. Still had to go from like tab to tab, but everything could be semi-consolidated from like a data standpoint. So I used that, and I used that effectively for about another year, and then fortunately had a falling out with the app, just like some real stupid shit going on. And this was where like my biggest audits, and I guess kind of the third one of, I went back to spreadsheets, but I built out, and over the years, I say this, over the last like 3 years, I've literally kept building the spreadsheet system that I had over and over and over and over, and just made it better and better, because I just found the simplicity of it. It's like every client has one spreadsheet now that houses their dashboard, their overview, every single training block, all of their check-in stuff, everything is in one place. It's like a check-in for me, and it's not about the expediation of the check-in. Like a check-in can be 2 to 20 minutes, but it's about the speeding up of the check-in, because all of the data is in front of me in one space. I don't have to go back and forth, and I don't have to do all of that. So that was kind of like, I guess, the pivotal audited moments within my business, communication, and then basically like looking at the system of how I was doing the things that mattered. And the thing that mattered was the check-in process and the data gathering. It's like those kind of 3 pivotal things around how can I expedite this process to solve problems faster, is what I went down with, I guess.
Nice.
So there's kind of, within like our guest episodes, we kind of got some questions that we like to ask our guests. I'm going to ask you one of them, and I'm going to get Nick to ask you the other one. So obviously, from what you've told us already, you've had a pretty, I would say, colourful life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Colourful is a great word.
Yeah. If you could sit down and have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
My grandfather. So my grandfather passed away in 2017. My grandfather. So my grandfather, Aubrey Cleaver, or known as Madala. So Madala means wise old man in Zulu. So I actually have his name, Madala, tattooed on the left side of my head, along with like a pack of playing cards. So when I got hit in the head, when I was 17, he, fucking God bless his soul, he would sit there at home with me and play. Do you guys know what rummy is? The card game rummy? So he used to play 3-card rummy. Okay, if anyone knows how to play rummy, it's almost impossible to play with 3 cards. 3 and then 4 and 5, as we kind of got rummy to try and help me essentially with my head injury, because I was so fucked that I actually couldn't hold 3 cards together. Like that's physically what was going on. I couldn't comprehend what would happen. Anyways, and he spent months just going through this process with me. And the conversations that I'd like to have with him is where part of his work ethic came from. Like I developed my work ethic from him. from viewing how he, kept the family going, how he pulled himself out of school. If I get this right, I think it did at 12 or 10 to look after the family because his dad went off to war. So he had, I think it was 4 brothers, if I remember correctly. I'm not close with that side of the family, but he had four or 5 brothers, and he was the oldest, and he had to look after the kids. So he pulled himself out of school and started working, and that's it. He did what I think men in this day and age would not do. A lot of the times would not do. And the conversation that I have with him is, around his work ethic, around his value system, around his ability to fucking work the problem. Like, that's, my grandfather was very important. More so from that, he wasn't a very big talker. We never really had those types of conversations. So I'd love to, at this age now and this mindset that I have and where I sit, I'd love to be able to sit down and just have that conversation with him. Like, he was a very, pivotal influence in my life around like what he did. Like, he made very good money, but he didn't ever live like he made good money. My grandfather, there's a joke my mom make is about 2 years before he died. To give you an idea, my grandfather worked the day he died, basically. I picked him up. So I was working on a response vehicle at the time, and he phoned my mom saying he has chest pain, and I fucking got there real fast, put him in a car, put an oxygen mask on him, and drove him to hospital. And unfortunately, within about 12 hours, he went in for a surgery for calcification on his artery, and he didn't make it through the surgery. So it's like I kind of took him to hospital and had that last time appearance with him. So that was like, he would be the guy that I wanted to. Going back to what I was saying, like, we have a joke of like, we had just had a meeting with our family accountant, and like, my grandfather worked fucking hard, very, very hard, and he made good money. And the accountant kind of gave us a valuation of like what he was doing, and he stood there in the fucking fruit aisle in front of the bananas, and he like turned to my mom and I, and he was like, I suppose I'm worth enough money that I can buy 2 bananas instead of 1 this week. And it's like fuck, dude. Like my grandfather was making like millions, to give you an idea. And this fucking old man is worried about spending 2 rand or half a dollar on fucking buying another banana. It's like, that's the type of individual he was. That would be someone that I'd want to sit down and spend some extra time with, to get an idea of work ethic, values, lessons that he learned within his life, being a father and a provider to families. Those would be conversations I'd want to know.
Yeah, I really respect that answer. Like, I'm incredibly close with my grandfather, and he's been a pretty pivotal man in my life since probably about 2018. So I can very much resonate with that answer because of the role and the impact he's had on my life. So yeah, when you said that, it kind of hit me in the old feels area.
Yeah.
Feels
so one of those of like, pick up the phone and give him a call after the podcast. Like, hey, just check in. Yeah.
It's pretty wild to think that was 2 generations ago, and I feel like a lot of the men, especially in our generation, could do very well taking some lessons from men 2 generations prior.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, I mean, if we look at it in this day and age, we used to sit down with our grandparents and listen to their stories and, have conversations with that. I think one of the things that I love doing, and one, because they're not our age, well, not our age, but they're not young fucking TikTokers, but like old people. Like, when I walk Ziggy or stuff like that, like, I'll purposely try and go past someone who is of an older generation and just strike up a conversation. It's like, why? Because who knows what I might learn from someone like that. I feel like they've got so much value to give. And if we look, back in the past, if we look around like tribal communities, like, the elders were those who spoke because they instilled the values, the stories, the way of life to the youngins, and to be honest, we don't see that anymore. We don't do that. We don't go and visit our grandparents. It's like that's a strong way for us to learn and maybe recalibrate this world that we currently live in.
Well, I mean, they've made it, right? Like they lived and they lived to tell the tale. So that's an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
So off the back of that, so kind of what we're doing here is each guest gets to ask the following guest a question. Right. You don't get to know who the previous guest was, and you don't get to know who the following guest is. But the question that we got for you from our previous guest is, if you got to create a billboard and place it anywhere, what would it say and where would it be?
Oh, what would it say? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Will be the statement on the billboard, because I think it is a thought-provoking statement, and those who see it will take something from it, I think is the way that they do. And I think it's a statement that needs to be reminded for most individuals in terms of like a values thing. But it is a statement that not many are going to actually look at and be able to reflect on. And I think that's the purpose behind the statement. The purpose behind the statement is it will resonate with a certain type of individual who is willing to open up to look at that and look at that statement and look at what's going on within. So I think it's kind of like a self-selecting statement. It's kind of how that would work. Where would I want that? I would want that at an airport, because I feel like it's the most trafficked area that it would go through. Because I think, as I said, it's a statement that I would want as many eyes to see as possible.
Beautiful. Great answer. And then off the back of that, what is a question that you would like to ask our next guest?
If you could go back in time and be a influential individual, like a Martin Luther King, something along those lines, who would you be and for what reason?
Nice.
It's a bit of I feel like that's a bit of a hard one, but it'd be an interesting answer, I think.
A nice thought-provoking question, I think.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking one. I'm a big fan of thought-provoking statements and questions.
Which is something I really very much admire about you.
Yeah. I like people thinking.
Awesome, dude. I think we might finish it there. Just from me personally, that was a super interesting conversation. I really appreciate you giving us time. For anyone that's listening that maybe doesn't know who you are yet and really enjoyed listening, where can they find you? Is there anything that you would like to mention that you have on at the moment before we end?
In terms of that, reach out on Instagram at Coach JMac on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. Always happy to have a chat. Whether it's coaching related, whether it's anything philosophical related. I'm a big fan of that. Big fan of thought-provoking questions, as I kind of stated. I'm always up for some form of conversation within the DMs. Other than that, no, not much else. I've got 6 weeks worth of competitors and shit going on right now, so we'll be in the mix of that. But other than that, boys, thank you very much. I appreciate reaching out to me and having me on. It is very valued to be amongst individuals who I would very much consider the same value set and thought processes I have.
Thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate your time.
Anytime.